Hey, everybody. Welcome to Odd and Untold, the podcast where we talk about all things strange and spooky. And welcome to 2026. Happy New Year, everybody. And this is our end of the year special. I try to do these every year, year in review or an end of year special, and just sort of go over the show from the past year, talk about different episodes, different stories. And I know last year I did like our top 5 episodes. I'm doing something a little different this year. I'm going to talk about and I'm just going to showcase some of my favorite guest stories from this year. So we have some Bigfoot stories, we have some ghost stories, we have some UFO encounters, really cool stuff. I'm going to start off with the Bigfoot sightings and then get into more of the UFO and ghost stuff, because the Bigfoot stuff, you guys seem to really love the Bigfoot stuff. So we'll start off with that, and then we'll get into some ghost stories and UFO sightings. So cool stuff tonight. I also want to do a cryptid countdown. I did some episodes this year on some cryptids that I think you guys should check out, and they're just some of my favorite episodes. So I will go through some of those, and then we will get to some really cool Bigfoot sightings from some of our guests. Okay, so one of the first episodes in our cryptid countdown I want to get to is the Jersey Devil. I did contemporary sightings for the Jersey Devil. There's a lot of talk about the Jersey Devil in like pre-colonial times and colonial times, and in the early 20th century, but you don't really hear too many stories of the Jersey Devil these days. So I tried to dig up some contemporary sightings of the Jersey Devil in the New Jersey Pine Barrens, and I showcase them in this episode. So if you have not seen the Jersey Devil contemporary sightings yet, go check that out, and we will get to number 2 on my list of cryptids. So number 2 on the list is the Hat Man, and I don't know if this is really a cryptid. This seems more in the paranormal realm, some sort of entity. So I kind of included it here because it's kind of this enigmatic entity. But is it a ghost? Is it a demon? Is it a shadow person? Nobody really knows. Is it just a result of too much Benadryl? That's, I don't know. I've seen the shadow person. I know people who've seen shadow people. So I don't know. I don't know how to classify it. Cryptid sort of implies that there's some biological origin to it. And I know things like the Jersey Devil and Mothman get wrapped up into cryptid lore, and I'm not so sure how that should be. And I have, colleagues out there in the paranormal world who would fight me on that. And that's fine. Again, I'm just sort of saying I don't know how to categorize something like the Jersey Devil or the Hat Man. So I throw it into cryptids. So, and Cryptid Countdown. I just love alliteration. So how could you go wrong? Number 3 on the cryptid countdown is the not deer. And this is a phenomenon that I'm a little bit on the fence about. It's this phenomena of people seeing deer in the woods, but they're not quite deer. They will stand up on 2 legs. Sometimes they're sort of zombified. Sometimes their eyes are just both facing forward. They look like deer kind of superficially, but on closer examination, they're not deer. And don't know what to make of this. Again, I think a lot of this is misidentification. I think these are people just seeing diseased deer, mangy deer, injured deer, and it freaks them out. But there are some stories in this episode of the not deer that will make you think twice and make you say this, these people should know what an injured deer looks like versus this weird deer walking on 2 legs and doing things that a deer, no matter what the disease or injury is, should not be able to do. So a very cool episode. One that really made me think and really question my own skepticism, because like I said, some of the stories are clearly misidentifications, but there's a few in there that make you think and you say, if this person didn't know what a deer was, what is this that they're seeing? So check out the not deer. All right, number 4 on the cryptid countdown is the Loveland Frogman. And this is a weird cryptid. Basically what it sounds like, it's a man that kind of looks like a frog. It's a reptilian. It looks like a frog, the big bulging eyes. And this was mainly seen in Ohio. And I have thoughts on this one as well. I don't know, some of the original stories, it sounds like a big frog or a lizard or maybe like a Komodo dragon that maybe somebody had as an exotic pet that got loose. And then the stories grew and it became the Loveland Frogman. And it's, like Bigfoot's cousin in the cryptid world. So I don't know what to make of that, but a cool episode, and you guys seem to really like that one too. And there's a Frogman festival every year, just like Mothman, and it's a cool cryptid and one I've known about for a long time, so I definitely wanted to cover it. And I took some contemporary stories of the Frogman as well, and spoke about those on the episode. So check out the Frogman. All right, number 5, and our last cryptid on the Cryptid Countdown is the Mantis Man of New Jersey. And this comes to us from Musconetcong and Hackettstown, places I've been to in New Jersey. So very cool to have this like local cryptid in New Jersey that's not the Jersey Devil, because everybody talks about the Jersey Devil and nobody really talks about the Mantis Man. But this is, again, as the name implies, a half man, half praying mantis. And sometimes it's more just the head of the mantis, and the hands are like long fingers or claws. They're not the typical like praying mantis, uh, appendages, but it is a mantis man, and people have claimed to have seen this thing. And again, it's hard to reconcile that this is a misidentification. Like, what are they seeing that they're mistaking for a giant praying mantis or an insectoid like humanoid on 2 legs, and it's got arms, but it's just got the big eyes and the triangular head. It almost sounds alien. And I discussed that in the episode, that a lot of alien encounters, sometimes there's like a taller one, like you hear the Greys and they're like 4 feet tall, and then you have like a mantis, praying mantis sort of figure that seems to be in charge. Very weird stuff. But you guys really like that episode. I got a lot of good feedback on that one and a lot of discussion. And it's a little known cryptid. A lot of people don't know about that one. Like I said, the Jersey Devil kind of rules New Jersey, and nobody really knows about the Mantis Man. So check out that one. And without further ado, we're going to get into some my favorite Bigfoot stories from some of my favorite people. So stay tuned. Okay, so the first Bigfoot sighting I want to highlight comes to us from Jeb Scruggs, and Jeb works with Squatch Hunters International, a good group of guys who go out and they just look for Bigfoot. And Jeb is an awesome guy. We had a lot of fun on the podcast. We just agreed on a lot of stuff, not everything, but we agreed on a lot of stuff, and we just had a really good rapport. And he's just a really good guy with a really cool story. And he's out there in New Hampshire, like almost every day, just in the woods looking for Bigfoot sign. Like, he's boots on the ground. A lot of people aren't, and they'll sit in their chairs and criticize and theorize, but they don't actually get out there. And Jeb is out there, and that is awesome. And I wish I lived in an area with more easily accessible wooded areas where there can be Bigfoot. I live on Staten Island. There is no Bigfoot on Staten Island. It is way too crowded here. Even though I did an episode on Bigfoot in New York City, Staten Island, Queens. So, but debunked those. There's no Staten Island Bigfoot. I'm sorry. I wish there was. That being said, Jeb is out there, and Jeb tells the story of how he got into Bigfoot because of his own sighting that he and his wife had on Mount Kinsman in New Hampshire a few years back. So I'll turn it over to Jeb and enjoy Jeb's story here.
So this was about, I want to say 14 months ago. This was May of 24. I had gone up to the White Mountains to spend a weekend with my wife, Mrs. Scruggs, and we stayed in this adorable little town of Bethlehem. It's just the most pristine little mountain town you can imagine. It's a little bed and breakfast. There's just a little couple of restaurants on the main drag, a church, just the bare necessities for small mountain living. So I went up there, and we spent the weekend doing what you do up in the mountains. We did a good share of hiking, and we were hiking on Mount Kinsman. So this was must have been like the 3rd week of May, and at this point, it's not quite fully green yet up in the White Mountains. We're still in spring. The leaves are still budding. There's still a lot of life emerging at this point. So even some pockets of snow still exist up there. So you got to make sure to bring your micro spikes just in case you have to walk across a little bit of ice. So we go up there. We're fully prepared to have a rough go of it just in case. But we get there, and we're the only 2 folks on that entire trail, which is exactly how you want to find a trail.
Yep.
We start hiking. We're having just a grand old time. It's a little greener than we expected. We get to the summit. It's a granite dome, so we're sitting on top of the granite. We're looking over at God's creation, seeing all the greenery, eating our smashed peanut butter and jelly sandwiches from the bottom of our backpacks, and they never quite taste as good as they do on top of a mountain.
Oh yeah.
So we're sitting there eating our sandwiches, and we get ready to depart. So we start walking down the mountain, and I've got probably a good 8 inches on Mrs. Scruggs, and my leg strides a little longer, and I'm a heavier fella, so I pick up momentum going downhill. So I must have been a good 50 yards in front of her when we were walking down this trail. And I get to this corner, and I look and I see a little movement in the bushes. And I think nothing of it. There's plenty of movement going on. It's spring. There's a lot of birds out, and it's very often a bird or a little chipmunk or squirrel or something innocuous that makes the loudest noise, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
So I see this little shuffling, and I see this like a hairy face around the corner, and my stomach drops. I think this has got to be a bear. And it's just about that time of year where you've got those bears coming out of hibernation, and they are hungry and they are not very polite.
Right.
So I turn around and I start just hoofing it up to Mrs. Scruggs. And once I get to her, I just tell her, like, honey, there's a bear up there. We need to wait for it to pass. Now, luckily, in New England, all you have are black bears. And as everyone knows, what do you do when you see a black bear?
You yell and scream and make yourself look big.
You yell at it, you say a mean word to it, and those are cowardly little critters. They will run off into the woods, and you'll be fine.
Yep.
Of course, when you're actually in the moment and you're facing down the barrel of a bear, you never quite have that presence of mind at that time. You start thinking, "Oh man, this thing is hungry. It's got bigger claws than me. It's likely bigger than me. This thing's gonna cause me harm."
Yep.
So I tell her that, and we just kind of stand still. We're just holding position in the middle of this trail and hoping that it'll walk by. So we hear these footsteps right off to the left in the tree line, and they sound like the most delicate little footsteps. It doesn't sound like big, heavy, lumbering, slonking. It sounds like a dainty little tiptoe almost. Like I was thinking squirrel or chipmunk at that point. So I look over and we're following this noise from the wood line, and I see dark fur. I see it hunched over, and I think that's my bear. Let's just relax and hope that it'll pass by. But it looks over, and it immediately gets up on 2 feet. So it gets up on 2 feet, and for lack of a better word, it boogies. It walks at an accelerated pace through that little clearing back into the tree line. And it must have been like 40, 50 yards away, so I didn't get the best look at it, but it was very alarming seeing it walk the way a man would walk. It was swaying its arms the way a man would, and it was walking with purpose. So these legs were walking and strutting along. I mean, have you ever seen a black bear walk on 2 legs?
Not in person, but I've seen it in videos and at the circus and in the zoo, and everybody's seen that. And yeah, they go 2 or 3 steps, if that, and they're very clumsy and they kind of keep their arms, they have to balance themselves.
Yeah, that's right. There's actually there's a charming little tourist trap up here called Clark's Trading Post. And what they do is they actually have bears at the location that have been, unable to survive on their own. So they take them in, they rehabilitate them, and, they do the little circus tricks in exchange for some delicious blackberry ice cream. So they'll get on a little bicycle, they'll toddle around, they'll stand on a barrel, they'll do a little dance, they'll be in a tutu, and they'll walk on 2 feet. But they toddle around like a drunk toddler. They have no grace in the slightest.
Right.
So when I saw this thing walking the way I would walk, I don't know what it was, but it shook me. And I look over to my wife and I said, "Did you see that?" And of course she didn't. She was like looking at her phone at the time, so she didn't actually see. I'm like, "Are you kidding me? That could have." All right, whatever. And being, naturally curious, I tell her, like, "Hey, well, let's take a look around. Let's see if we can find some like paw tracks. Let's see if we can find some broken limbs. Let's just see what we can find. I want to know what the hell that was." But she was still very much in bear mode. In fact, she was looking up like, oh, our bear's out this time of year. And I'm like, I could have told you that, honey. They're probably out. It's springtime. So she was in the mindset that she wants to get off this mountain as soon as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So I did the smart thing. I listened to her. And I said, yes, honey, we can do that. So we ran down the mountain at an accelerated pace. And then we got to the car and we took off. And honestly, I didn't think anything of it for a very long time. I just thought that was an unusual experience. And since then, we actually come across bears a couple of times while out in the woods. Mm-hmm. And some instances were actually scarier than the others, because there's one point where we came across a mama bear and a couple of cubs.
Ooh, yeah.
And that is the only time you can see a black bear and think, okay, this is actually really dangerous, because if you come between a mama and a cub, you're going to be looking for a better time. It's not going to be a good time.
No.
But I remember looking at them and thinking, like, I was making sure to like observe their behavior, the way they were. This was actually this was earlier this year, springtime still. So same idea. It's just in time for hibernation to come in. And this mama and her cubs were very slowly foraging through the woods. They were very cautiously, very sluggishly almost. I know they were sluggish because I was waiting for them to pass, and they took minutes, which doesn't sound like a long time. But when you're standing there staring at a bear and you're waiting for it to, like, hopefully not notice you, minutes add up and it feels like a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember thinking, like, that's a very different behavior than the one I saw up in Mount Kinsman.
Okay, so that's Jeb's story. And I think it's a really interesting one because, again, he's seeing this thing. It's got a face and he's thinking bear. He's not thinking Bigfoot. And I love that. I love when people don't have Bigfoot on the brain. He's just out enjoying nature, and he and his wife think they come across a bear. It's got a weird face, and then the thing is on two legs and it runs. Like he's saying this thing just skedaddled, it boogied out of there, as he says. That's not a bear. A bear is not going to stand up on two legs and run. So it's interesting to me when you have people who are either skeptics or they're just not, obsessed with Bigfoot. There's just so many people who, they go into the local park and they hear a twig snap and like, oh, Bigfoot. It's not, but they have that on the brain. So I love that Jeb wasn't thinking Bigfoot, but he has this encounter. He's thinking it's a bear. That's the logical conclusion, that you're seeing a bear as this large, hairy thing, and you're trying to protect yourself and your wife, and then it gets up on two legs and runs. So very cool story. Go check out Squatch Hunters International. I will link to them below. Jeb's an awesome guy. And like I said, we had a lot of fun. Watch the episode and you'll see that comes across. So thank you, Jeb. Okay, so our next Bigfoot sighting story comes to us from a guy named Josh. Josh reached out to me. He had seen some of my episodes on Bigfoot sightings in Pennsylvania, which are some of my most popular episodes. And he just wanted to tell his story. And, it was one of those things where he had this sighting and he just went to Google and was like, hey, does anybody else see Bigfoot in Pennsylvania? And he found my show. And he reached out to me to tell me his story and the story that his friend had as well. And that's in the episode. I'm not going to include that here. I really wanted to focus on Josh's story because it's his firsthand story. But here we have another story that's really interesting. I'm going to let it play and then I'll talk about it after that. But Josh is another one, just a very super nice guy, very sincere. And we just had a really good rapport, and love Josh. He's a great guy. And just so nice to come on the show. A lot of people are afraid to share their story. And Josh had never been on a podcast before. He'd never done anything like this before. And you can't, if he was nervous, you can't tell. I couldn't tell. But great storyteller and a really interesting story. So turn it over to Josh so he can tell his story.
Yeah. So my story starts I think I was probably 16 or 17, I'd say. And so it's probably about 9-ish years ago, which is crazy how it feels like it was yesterday. But my friends and I had this, we built a fort up in the woods. And when we were up there, we built this, like a lean-to, and then we kind of just expanded into this hangout that we would go to all the time. And the brush was really dense. There's a low canopy area with the trees to kind of paint a picture. Is, you can't see more than maybe 20 or 30 yards, especially in the summer. It's probably even less than that. Like the shrubbery around it makes a perfect fort. And it was a small portion of woods, and we had like a north and a south entrance. And I typically would go in from the south entrance, but my friends came in the north entrance. Which all that to say is, I thought that they were in the fort, but they were on the other side. So I came into the north entrance this time because I had my bike, and that was the easiest way to get in. It's close to twilight, and it's that weird lighting where it's like you can see, but you can't see. That the sun is set. It's not quite dark. And I'm pushing my bike in. It's like a deer trail. It's kind of what we wanted to keep it that way, so it didn't look too much like a human trail. And you had to kind of maneuver it in. So I'm crouched down under my bike, behind it, pushing it through the brush. It's getting stuck, but I wanted it out of sight. And I see like this, as I'm like halfway in the entrance, there's this like dark mass that just like runs in front of me. And I thought it was my friends. And because I started laughing. I was like, I saw you, you're not going to trick me. But then I kind of like don't hear a response from them. And then I hear some chatter maybe 100 yards away, which is where they were. And then I yelled. I was like, hey, where are you guys? They're like, oh, we're, on the other side. So I said, so you're not right in front of me? And they're like, no. And while this is happening, whatever ran in front of me, it was like, to me, it sounded like a deep breathing, grunting noise that I can't mimic. Like I can't physically make that deep grunting sound. So in my mind, I'm like, well, that wasn't deer, because I've spooked a deer. Going in the woods all the time, I spooked deer. And it's like an explosion, and then they're gone. You hear them skip. You can hear every, skip as they run off, and then you'll see them. A bear in this area, bear is very rare. They do occasionally venture into this area. So whatever it was, its back that I saw was at least 4.5 feet above the ground. But it was just a split second. And then it was just in the brush enough where I couldn't see it, but it felt like I was maybe 10, 15 feet away. Like that's how dense this was. And it was night, almost night. And it's just this breathing. And I'm talking to my friends. And then I decided I should probably get out. Yeah. So I backed up slowly, got my bike out, didn't run, because I was like, in my mind, I'm thinking it's a bear still. And then I take off once I feel like I was far enough away in the open. But that was the extent of the story. I went down and got them, and I was like freaking out. I was like, guys, I just saw a bear. And they're like, really? And then we went back to look, but we kept a distance, and we didn't see anything leave, because again, this is like surrounded by a field, so we didn't see anything going anywhere. We would have seen something, but we didn't. We figured maybe there's a split second where it could have gotten away while we weren't looking. But yeah, and it was years later, probably 6-7 years later, I was like, well, maybe that wasn't a bear. I'm not saying it was Bigfoot. I'm not saying I know what it was, but it was just strange, because bears, there are people who go their whole lives living in bear country and not see a bear, or rarely see a bear. And the bears that we get around here, you can count on one hand how many bears have been in this area in like a decade or two. It's not common. And they're usually smaller black bears, because there's just not enough food. And if there's a person near them, they're gonna want to run and disappear. If you spook them, they're gone. They're not gonna linger close to you, obviously, unless there's cubs. But I think I would have known if there were cubs. And there was nothing in the news about it. I mean, there are people who live around here. No one had a bear on a trail camera or the news. The news always airs it. So I started thinking about that later on, and I thought, it's just strange. It's the only way I can kind of describe it.
Okay, I want to thank Josh for coming on the show again. You know, great guest, great guy. Just I meet so many good people here, and all my guests are great. You know, I got to have really cool people on to sort of offset this. Um, so yeah, but another story about, you know, somebody who's not thinking Bigfoot, doesn't have Bigfoot on the brain, has this encounter. Their first thought is it's a bear, and then it's just one of these things where, and with Josh, he didn't really get as good a look at this as say Jeb did. But it's one of these things that I talk about on the show a lot, that our brains know that something is wrong even when we don't. You know, it's like we see this and it's like, oh, it must have been a bear, but something in the back of your mind just keeps from telling you like, hey, this wasn't right. This, you know, there are no bear here. If there was a bear here, you know, the news would have been talking about it. If it were a bear, it would have run. It wouldn't have stayed there. And, you know, it didn't act like a bear. It's not in an area where there are a lot of bear. So what was this thing? So again, it's not this highly detailed encounter, but it's weird. And this is, you know, central Pennsylvania, around York, and not so central, but, you know, more closer to the east side. But I'm splitting hairs here. But you get what I'm saying. Like, this is not the middle of nowhere, but it's still rural, and it's not really an area infested with bears. And of course, a bear could make its way through. But again, you wouldn't think a bear would be hanging out where other kids are yelling and playing. And then Josh is coming through on his bike and yelling to his friends. And this thing is just kind of standing still. If this were a black bear, it would have run off. So I like this encounter. Very cool. I just love these non-embellished, just very straightforward. I saw something, I can't explain it. And it doesn't start checking out. Like once you start trying to say, could it have been this? Could it have been that? Those things start falling apart. Those arguments of it was a bear, they don't really hold up too well. So really cool encounter. Okay, so our third Bigfoot sighting story comes to us from Josh, a different Josh, my buddy Josh Diaz, who's been on the show many times before. And we do our paranormal campfire episodes, and we go camping up in the Adirondacks all the time. And we were doing a paranormal campfire chat at Oxbow Lake just this past summer. And great camping trip. We just had so much fun. We went swimming, and the weather was great. And we did some kayaking, and Josh did some fishing and caught some fish. Really cool episode. So check it out. But during the episode, Josh tells a story that was told to him by a friend a few years back, before he even knew me, of his friend's brother driving home from work at night 2 nights in a row and seeing some really unusual activity, to what he never said Bigfoot, but to what sounds like baby Bigfoot playing on a snowy road at like 3 a.m, you know, very late at night. So I'll turn this over to Josh and let him tell the story that was told to him, and I'm featuring on the show. So enjoy this story. This one's creepy. So this story was told to, I'll let you get to it, but it was here in the Adirondacks, right?
No, actually,
was it?
Believe it or not, this took place. I don't know the area. Scott knows the area well. We actually drove through just to go explore the area. I don't know the exact road it happened on, but I know the area.
Okay.
But believe it or not, it was on the other side, on the southern side of the Mohawk River.
Oh, okay.
So this was, gosh, I can't remember the name. I wish Scott was here because he would immediately know what I was talking about.
Scott can drop it in the comments when he watches this.
Yeah,
you
Scott,
better watch it,
definitely
Scott.
help me. You know what I'm talking about, Scott. But it was basically, there's like a ski mountain, you know, in mountains in New York, you know, outside of the Adirondacks aren't really mountains, they're more like hills, you know.
Right.
But anyway, that there's a hill, and it was around that area. You know, it's an interesting mix of like farmland. You know, there's a New York State Thruway, and it was on the southern, you know, it was south of the Thruway. But anyway, but it was a pretty remote area. It was pretty rural. You know, farmland, fields, but also plenty of woods and you know, thick wooded areas, and you know, streams going through, and yeah, we went and checked it out, and it looked like a squatchy area. But anyway, to the story. So I had a friend that his a little background on him. He comes from a family. They're big time hunters. They're more of the rugged hunters. They're Adirondack hunters. And anybody who's hunted in the Adirondacks, it's a lot more challenging than just sitting in a field, in a cornfield, where the deer are just going to come out because there's corn and you shoot them. Here you actually have to work a little bit more for the animals. They're a little bit more spread out. But anyway, so he's an Adirondack hunter. He's hunted deer, bear, pretty much his whole life. And his brother as well. So he was telling me about his brother, how his brother and his friend were getting out of work, and it was maybe like 3 or 4 in the morning. It was wintertime, and they were driving home through this back road, and it was all dark, and all of a sudden they saw like these little creatures. They looked like almost like kid size, and they kind of rolled out, and they were playing, and they kind of rolled out into the road from the woods to the right of them. And there was 2 of them, and he said that they stood up. They were bipedal. They were covered in fur. They know what bear cubs look like, and bears, having been Adirondack hunters, and they weren't bears. And so his brother and his friend just sat there for a minute or two, watched them just playing in the road, and then they just kind of ran back off into the woods. And they just sat there like amazed. They just didn't even know what to make of it. And but it was late, and so they drove home. And went back to work the next day. Took the same road back the next day, and in the same spot they found him there again.
Wow.
Playing in the road. And they watched him for a little bit, and they again ran off back in the woods. But they didn't seem to be afraid of them. Mm-hmm. And that's the story. I mean, I don't want to add or take away from it, but that's the story. They don't talk about it. It's not something. My friend told me about it because we got talking about Bigfoot, and he mentioned his brother's experience. And but it's one of the first ones I heard at the time. Of adolescents, babies. Who knows if there was a mother? I'm sure there was a mother nearby, but it certainly wasn't bear. Bears are easily distinguishable, but they were, they were bipedal, hairy, small creatures that just came out of the woods.
Yeah, and to your point, like, one, you're saying like these guys are like rugged hunters.
Right.
These are not casual hunters. These aren't guys who like hunt, 10 minutes outside of New York City in right. Like a cornfield or a meadow.
Yeah.
The Adirondacks, no matter where you go, like you were saying, like finding flat space is just, I mean, just to put our tents down is hard enough. So the Adirondacks are rugged, and this is not in the Adirondacks, but the Mohawk River is like the southern border of like where Adirondack Park starts.
Yeah.
So it's close enough.
They're Adirondack hunters, so
right.
they're used to the important part about that detail is that they know what bears look like.
Right.
They shot bear before. They
right.
know what bears, so this was not, any kind of bear.
Right. And also if you're talking it's the winter and it's snow,
right.
And again, bears don't absolutely 100% hibernate all the time. Like they can wake up, they can't, but the chances of that are so slim.
Right.
Especially with cubs.
Right.
So for any skeptic saying, it was bear, there's just so many things against that one, these guys know what bears look like.
Right.
And even if you're not saying it's Bigfoot and, your brain sometimes will just see something and you say, that's not right.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that's not an animal I recognize.
Right.
And, a lot of people, they don't think Bigfoot at first, they're just seeing something they can't explain. And they're like, that's not a bear. That's not a deer. And the fact that it happened 2 nights in a row, like that's just weird. Like the same time. And
amazing.
And again, if you're talking like hoaxer or just, kids outside playing and they're wearing dark coats, like what kid's going to be playing out on a snowy road at like 4 in the morning in a New York winter?
Right.
Like it's brutal up here,
Yeah, it's cold.
It's cold. Sure. So a very cool story. And I appreciate I don't want to add or subtract from it, because
I mean, those are the details I got. And, it wasn't any more than that, but I mean, he didn't say it was a Bigfoot. He said, I don't know what it was. The brother, my friend that told me that said his brother just didn't know what it was, but it was bipedal and it was not a bear. And they stood they're standing on two legs.
Yeah, and see, and I appreciate that too, because so many people just, it was definitely Bigfoot,
right.
And I appreciate when they say, like, I don't know what it was. Yeah. Like, this is what I saw. It was bipedal, it was covered in fur, and it stood up and, like, walked away. Right, so, like, you make of that what you will. Yeah. Like, if you want to call it Bigfoot, you call it Bigfoot. If you want to call it a puckwudgie, you want to call it a troll, you want to call it, like, whatever it is, but it wasn't a bear, it wasn't people.
Yeah.
Like, what was it that these guys saw?
And actually, that's a detail I can't remember if he said it was hair or fur.
Mm-hmm.
I say fur because that's kind of what I think I remember of the story. So take that for what it as you will. But it may have been hair. But whatever it wasn't a bear. I think that's an important distinction coming from people that know.
Right.
So yeah, that was that was his experience, and I did ask him if he would come on the show.
Yeah, and I remember that.
Yeah, and he was like, no.
Yep. Which I think adds a little bit of credibility to this, because you get so many people just don't they'll tell you privately, they'll tell me privately,
right?
And then we ask them, like, hey, will you come on air? And nope. And sometimes they'll let us tell the story, but they don't want to come on. They don't want to be on camera. They don't want their voice on there.
Yeah.
They don't want their neighbors recognizing them. They don't want, and a lot of times, like, they just don't want to talk about it ever again. Like, they'll bring it up, and then, like, you start questioning them, and like, yeah, I really don't want to get into it.
Right.
Like, they tell you for whatever reason, they just got to get it out.
Yeah.
But when you try to get more detail or ask them again, they just don't want to. Right. And that, I think that's just a sign of trauma, or that something bothered them. Like, this wasn't just like, oh yeah, I probably just saw bears. Like, something bothered these guys where it was like they don't want to talk about it.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, to me that is a very creepy story. Just you driving down this dark road at night. It's not quite the Adirondacks. It's kind of like a little bit south of the Adirondacks, but still wooded areas. It's in the dead of winter. It's snow. It's really late. You're talking 3, 4 in the morning. You're coming home from work, and you see these little humanoid creatures just tumbling in the road, and they're not bear. One, because up there, everybody knows what a bear looks like. Most people, regardless of where you live, knows what a bear looks like. And bears should be hibernating this time of year. They're not having cubs. So what are these little creatures that are covered in hair tumbling in the road and playing in the road? And then it happens 2 nights in a row. So this almost sounds like this is just their routine. It's not children. Like, no person in their right mind is going to have their kids out dressed in all fur, playing in a road in the snow in the winter at 3, 4 in the morning. Just a very creepy story. And I don't know why. I think like Bigfoot babies just creep me out more than like a regular Bigfoot, because maybe it just means there's like a Bigfoot mama around. And if like what a mama bear will do if you come across our cubs, imagine what a mama Bigfoot would do. So Josh, thank you for sharing that story with the listeners. And I love those paranormal campfire chats. They're just so cool. It gives you guys a little glimpse into like what camping with Josh and I is like, because that's what we talk about around the campfire. And our chats kind of turn into this. So very cool, very spooky story. Okay, so we're going to be moving away from Bigfoot now and getting more into like ghost stories and UFOs and just creepy stuff like that. And the first batch of stories is going to come to us from my buddy Oscar from the Induced Fear podcast. And I had been on Oscar's show a while back, and then he came on my show in November. And Oscar's just a great guy, such a gracious guest and host. And again, just a really good rapport with him, a very cool guy. And he was, gracious enough to share some of his stories. And I'm going to play all 3 of them in a row. He's got 3 different stories. 2 of them are like paranormal. He's got a story that involved he and his fiancée. There's another story about him and guests who would stay at his house who had experiences, which is, near and dear to my heart, because I had an episode entitled The Haunted Guest Room. And I tell some stories about my old apartment. We had a guest bedroom, and everybody who stayed there had experiences, even if they didn't know the other people, or even if they didn't know the house was allegedly haunted. But everybody who stayed there had weird experiences, and Oscar has a very similar set of stories from his friends. And then we're going to finish up with a story of Oscar encountering a UFO. And I'm not saying it was alien. He's not saying it was alien. I use UFO in the literal sense. It's unidentified. It was flying and it was an object. Military, alien, interdimensional, just a misidentification. I don't know, but it's a very cool story, very creepy and a little dangerous. So I'm glad he's okay after what happened, because once you hear the story, you're going to be like, that's not your typical UFO story. So let me turn it over to Oscar.
2018, 2019, we had just moved to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember, again, high stress situation. We just moved from New York all the way over here, drove 26 hours.
Wow.
And I just remember just being tired, laying there on the couch, kind of both watching TV and just doom scrolling on the phone at the same time, which I don't recommend anybody to do. You don't want to kill your brain. But I remember my fiance getting up, and she was already in the bedroom.
Mm-hmm.
She got up, walked into the hallway, and then as soon as I asked, "Are you okay?" she just turned right back around. So I got up, was walking right behind her. The place was small. I'm walking right behind her. I'm like, "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" And then boom, door slammed right in my face. She's walking in. I open it right after her, and she's asleep in bed already, fully knocked out. So I go, "All right, weird." I could chalk that up as paranormal. I can chalk that up as rotting my brain for a couple of hours watching TV and scrolling on the phone while I'm super tired. And then I laid back down on the couch. And as I was looking at my phone again, I just hear boom, 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 like steps walking towards me. As soon as I make eye contact with it, sleep paralysis. And I'm stuck in sleep paralysis on the couch. And that was a time that it felt intelligent in a way. Like almost like it was like, all right, you're not paying attention to me.
Right.
You're in a vulnerable state right now. I'm going to kind of trick you into getting
looking at me.
again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then it hasn't happened ever since then, ever since I kind of like went full into this world and started to like understand things a little bit more. I mean, I'll never have the answers. I don't think a lot of us will ever have the answers 100%, but I can understand a little bit, and I can just say, all right, you got me there.
Right.
That's fine. You got me there. It's not going to happen again, though. It's not going to happen again. But yeah, those things, sleep paralysis is the main thing that kind of pulled me in to this world. And other things happened along the way, but I have had things happen where it comes down to, not to myself, but people who visit.
Oh, okay.
In our old place, because we just moved to this place probably May or March of last year. No, this year, not last year. But the place before, I'm in the guest room is where I recorded. And I did all of this. And anybody who stayed in that room had this dream or whatever it may be of me crawling into bed with them and laying next to them. They were like, another one was like her sister and her boyfriend were there, and her boyfriend tells me, "Why, I swear I had a dream about you like crawling like between us and just laying down between us and like not saying anything and just laying down." And then again, my fiance's brother one time, and this was the middle of the day. It wasn't at night. I picked him up from the airport. He came, I dropped him off. I said, "You can just take a nap. You can chill in that room over there. I'm gonna head to work." And then he ends up telling my fiance, "Yeah, I had a dream that like Oscar just like crawled into bed next to me." And it's just like a thing that happened for people who stayed in that room. For whatever reason, they would have a dream or something of me crawling into the room with them. And I was like, I don't know if it's because I talk about these things in this room. Some people were like, well, you should do like a closeout, like whatever spirits came through during the talking of these things, whatever I call forward, you can leave. You know, don't stay here.
Right.
But who knows? Yeah. A few years went by, and now I live in California. And I would drive the 6 hours every once in a while to go hang out with my friends in Arizona. And one time my brother went with me. We drove there, hung out, driving back, and he's supposed to be awake to keep me awake as we're driving in the middle of the night in the desert. And the road is 2 lanes, a large dirt median in the middle, and then 2 other lanes going the opposite way. We're driving through, we go past the town, and then it's the long stretch of nothing, just darkness. And I start to see again this light dancing around, and in my head I'm thinking, there's a prison nearby. There's the signage that says do not pick up hitchhikers
Right.
anywhere. Which, side note, I have picked up hitchhikers along the side of that road before, and it wasn't a great experience because they smelled really bad, but that's besides the point. But I see this light, and I'm trying to figure out, could this be a helicopter? Something searching for somebody? Now I got to keep my eyes peeled to see if anybody's going to run across the road. And as I'm trying to figure it out, I'm trying to wake up my brother at the same time. I'm like, dude, wake up. Dude, I need you to look at this with me.
Right.
Help me figure out what it is. Or at least look to see if anybody's going to run across the road. And as I kind of just have this slight glance of turning to kind of hit him to wake him up, and then turning back, now this light is coming straight down from the sky and going straight towards the car, to the point where I instinctively just swerved to the side, and thankfully no car was on the other side of me. So I swerved to the side, and then my brother wakes up and he's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And I'm like, you didn't see that? You didn't see that right now? You tell me you saw this right now. And at the same time, I'm looking in the rearview mirror and kind of like turning over to look behind me, because my first thought was the light turned off or something, and then now there was a car driving on the road. That's what my brain is kind of piecing together. And I think somebody's driving the wrong way on the freeway. That's not good. I look behind me. There are no tail lights going out. I don't even see, because even if I didn't see tail lights, I could still see the light from their headlights.
Yeah, you would see something.
Driving the opposite way, and nothing. It was just this light came down from the sky, shot straight towards the car. I swerved, looked behind me, nothing. Nothing there anymore. And that was one of those moments where I was like, my brain broke.
Yeah.
I was like, what just happened right now? And still to this day, I have no idea what it could have been. I still, in my head, I'm like, no, it was a helicopter that I looked at, and somebody was driving the wrong way on the freeway.
Did you hear
that's
anything?
The way that makes it feel better. No, nothing.
Silent.
No sound.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank Oscar again for coming on the show, sharing his stories. Just a great guy. Can't say enough nice things about these people. It's just, like I said, doing this show has allowed me to meet so many cool people and interact with them and share stories, on air, off air. But Oscar is one of the good ones. And just these stories are really cool. The first story about his fiance, Oscar has this like sleep paralysis, but it's very different than a psychological sleep paralysis where most of us encounter it when we're waking up. And it's just like our brains are kind of stuck in sleep mode. Whereas with Oscar, he's wide awake, and it's kind of the reverse. Whereas with normal sleep paralysis, you're sleeping and then you have this kind of encounter with something creepy. With Oscar, he has this encounter with something creepy, and then he kind of goes into like he's paralyzed. So very strange. And the story with his fiance just reminded me of a story that my buddy John had told me about, one of his ex-girlfriends when they were dating years ago. And just, and I've heard a lot of other stories like this too, where people, there's someone else in the house, you think you see them or hear them. And then when you go to check on them, they're like much further away. They're in bed, they're sleeping. They're not playing a trick on you. They're clearly just in bed sleeping. And, you know, you think you hear the kids upstairs, and you go to check on them and they're out. And you're like, 4-year-olds don't do that. 4-year-olds don't play tricks like that. You know, they're not going to be up there giggling. And by the time you get up the stairs, they're in bed and they're, you know, clearly sound asleep. Doesn't happen. So weird story. The story about his guests, you know, they thought he crawled into bed with them. Again, I have very similar stories from my haunted guest room where people thought I was out in the hallway talking. They thought I was out walking around out there. And the next morning they'd be like, why were you outside my door? Why were you talking? And I'm like, I wasn't. Like, nobody was out there talking. I don't know what you heard. You heard a male voice talking in the middle of the night and you thought it was me, and it wasn't me. The UFO story, very scary that this thing, you know, most people, they see a UFO, it's way up in the sky, it's way out in the distance. Or even if it's close, it's just kind of hovering overhead. It's not, I mean, it's scary because it's so close, but it's not dangerous. I mean, this story that Oscar shared sounds a little dangerous. This thing sort of like buzzed his car, and that is scary. And he had to swerve to miss it, you know, because he, again, is not thinking this is an alien craft. He's thinking, is this a car, an oncoming car? Is this a helicopter? Is this some sort of aircraft? There's a military base nearby. Are they testing something? He's not thinking UFO in that moment. In that moment, he's just thinking about self-preservation. So a very cool story, because then he looks behind him and it's gone. It clearly wasn't a car. There was nothing on the road. It made no sound. So not a helicopter or an aircraft. And as he says, this is long before drones were prevalent. So I don't know. It's unidentified. It was flying and it was an object. It was a UFO. So very cool story. Thank you, Oscar. And hope to have you back on the show again soon, and hope to be on your show. So happy New Year, buddy. Okay, and the last group of stories comes from my friends at Slice of the Paranormal. They have a podcast. They're awesome. I met them in Lancaster over the summer. I went up to like a small paranormal convention in Lancaster out in Pennsylvania. Over the summer, we met, we talked, we had a great time. And, you know, they've been on my show, and I met with them a few weeks ago, and we did some scouting of some haunted places here on Staten Island. And they're going to have episodes out soon, hopefully in January, but I'm not going to spoil too much. But another great group of people. I love these guys. I had such a good time hanging out with them when they came down here. And I hope to go up and see them in PA in the coming months, and they can show me around their local haunts, pardon the pun. But we're going to have 3 stories here, one from Stephen, one from Christy, one from Ryan. And again, this runs the gamut from UFOs to ghosts to unexplained phenomenon. So I will kick it over to them, and when they're done, I will talk a little bit more about their stories. But these are really cool stories too, and like I said, great group of people. I love Slice of the Paranormal, and we got pizza. So how can you go wrong? Paranormal and pizza would have been a good podcast name, but they do it great. So check them out.
So I'm actually going to go to the UFO realm. My personal experience is in 1992 when I was a kid. I actually saw a large craft fly over Sunbury, and it had like 4 lights, 3 in a triangle and 1 in the center. And I was able to run after this thing and keep up with it, and it was silent. And I watched it fly over the local hill going south. I didn't think much of it. My science teacher the next day asked if anyone saw this. I raised my hand, told him I saw it, blah, blah, blah. It wasn't until a couple of years later that I realized MUFON did a complete article on it.
Oh,
and
wow.
it's called the Williamsport Wave, because in Williamsport, Pennsylvania, it was first seen, and it was tracked by over a dozen witnesses going from Williamsport down to Sunbury, and I was just one of the witnesses that saw this thing, and it's extremely well documented. I brought the journal's report to show them, like, hey, here's the UFO I've seen, and here's the report MUFON did of it. So that was fun. I still don't know what it was. Yeah.
I did have an experience with the Creeper Gallery in New Hope, Pennsylvania. walking into the Red Room there. That place is super cool, by the way. Please go check out the Creeper Gallery in New Hope, Pennsylvania. What a fun place. I mean, if you're into that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But the Red Room, we walked in there. I guess I was a little more unassuming than I should have been. And as I kind of walked back farther in the room, I felt something kind of tap me on the shoulder or put a little pressure on my shoulder kind of deal. And I didn't really pay much mind. There were 3 of us in a small kind of area. Didn't really think about it. But then I turned to my right and read she has lovely blurbs up all over the place about the ghosts that haunt these items and, the energies connected to them. And as I turned to my right and read one, it literally said something like, this ghost likes to make itself aware by tapping you on the shoulder or something like that. It validated me right then and there.
Yeah.
And I was just down the hall from you, and I literally saw him react to a tap. And there was no one near him close enough to tap him. Mm-hmm. And I knew something had happened, but I didn't know what it was till later.
That's cool. That's cool that you get that validation. Like you didn't know that was a thing that happened there, and then you realize it after.
Right.
Yeah, because you never know. You don't want to, discount anything, but also you don't want to be like, it could have been. So sometimes it's nice to have that validation for sure.
Mm-hmm. Oh, definitely.
Or if someone else witnesses it, like Steve saw that. When I was younger, I was in a house in old Canada, I think Hamilton, Ontario, we were at. And we were on the 3rd floor of an old duplex. And I remember talking to my friend, and I was playing guitar. My guitar pick, we watched it rise off the table, both of us, and then just go straight up about 12, 14 inches and then shoot across the room and hit the wall. And we both ran down all 3 flights of them stairs pretty quick. And I was only like 12 years old. So it was just a crazy experience. So yeah, I've had a couple experiences in my life where something's more than what I'm aware of.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we've had. We've also, speaking of Centralia, we've been seeing these weird kind of lights in the woods at the Centralia Oddfellows Cemetery.
Oh, really?
They're not lights that are like making them, they're not lighting up on their own. They're like a reflection to our light.
Mm-hmm.
But what's weird about that is they seem to like change colors and move. And we've gone there several times to try and debunk it. Like we've gone there during the rain, we've gone there during fog, like all different kinds of weather to see if we could debunk what we were seeing. And we still, to this day, still don't know what we're seeing in these woods, these weird flashes of light. Because I'll see the light and I'll get out of the car and I'll walk right towards it and it won't be there. It'll stop. There'll be nothing there. So, that's an ongoing investigation that we're doing right now. We keep going back up there, trying to figure out what it is we're seeing.
And that's not a light source that you're seeing. You're saying it's more of like a reflection.
Right.
So that's interesting because I don't hear that too often. I hear like the orbs. You hear like the light orbs. And again, paranormal people are going to say they're ghosts, and UFO people are going to say they're probes, and Bigfoot people are going to say it's the portals. But lots of people see these things, not only in the woods, but I've heard people seeing them in like neighborhoods, like near houses, and like going from window to window and like weird stuff. So I've not heard that reflective thing though. That is interesting.
Right. And that's, and again, we didn't want to like just believe for the sake of believing. We want to actually make sure that we're believing something, right? So, we'd see these lights and then we'd walk right up close to right where the lights were to see, is there a bug that's making this reflection? Is there a drop of dew on this grass? Anything like that. And the lights would stop and we couldn't find anything that would be making these reflections. And like the 2 of us saw some of them change color and move. Mm-hmm. So, I did get a little bit of video of that, but of course, as in most things paranormal, all the good stuff happens when you're not recording.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So, but yeah, so
it clearly like wasn't animal eye shine or anything like that.
No, clearly, because someone was close enough to where we were sitting. Mm-hmm. We would have seen that with the flashlight because it was a high power flashlight. So, and like I said, even several times we'd see the light and we'd walk towards it and it would stop as we were walking. We'd walk back a few feet and it would start up again, almost like it didn't want us getting close. So,
and
again,
if that were an animal, that would run away.
No idea what it is.
Yeah. Interesting.
So, yeah, if anybody has any ideas, let us know because I really don't know what we were seeing.
And that's only around Centralia you've seen that?
It seems to be only at the Oddfellows Cemetery in Centralia. We've gone across the street to the other cemetery, right across the street there, tried to see him there, didn't see it. So we had only seen it at this one location. And it's not actually in the cemetery. It's like the parking area around it. So it's like an open area and then some trees.
Very strange.
Yeah.
All right. So 3 more great stories here. You know, we have Stephen seeing this triangular UFO. And, you know, back when he was seeing this, it probably wasn't so stereotypical, but now we do hear about these UFOs a lot. The triangles, you know, a point of light on each corner and then one in the middle, like a bigger one in the middle. I've seen what I think is a triangular UFO. They've just become very prevalent in recent times. Usually they're black, but a very cool sighting by Stephen. And again, it's corroborated by other people and the media who, you know, it's a UFO flap and he was part of that and he saw this. And again, there's nothing hyperbolic about his story. It's nothing sensational. He saw this thing and then it's gone. You know, it's not crazy, embellished, just a very cool story from a group, you know, who mainly focuses on ghosts and hauntings. But there's always overlap, you know, and I think people like us who are more open to paranormal things, if you're into ghost hunting, you're going to be a little bit more open to UFOs or Bigfoot or cryptids and, you know, vice versa. So thank you, Stephen. And then Ryan tells us a few stories about, you know, being touched on the shoulder, which has happened to a lot of people I know. I've mentioned it's happened in my family where they get tapped on the shoulder, like clear tapping on the shoulder, not like little muscle spasm, not one of those things where you're half asleep and you're like, oh, did I just get touched? But like clear taps on the shoulder. And like Steven said, like Ryan turned, like he was reacting to something. There was a stimulus and he reacted to it. So that was very cool. And then the guitar picks lifting up. I've investigated stories where these college girls said they had a guitar, like an acoustic guitar in their bedroom, and the strings would be plucked, you know, and it wasn't just a vibration. It was like somebody took fingers and like plucked the strings, which is a very different sound than just an acoustic guitar vibrating and making a sound. And then Christy, she's talking about Centralia. I did an episode on Centralia because again, I love Pennsylvania and I've done a lot of Pennsylvania episodes, not just for Bigfoot, but Centralia is this ghost town that was abandoned because a coal mine underneath it caught fire and it is still burning. And they're saying it may burn for like the next 200 years, which is horrifying. I mean, paranormal or not, it's just that this coal mine is just going to burn for the 200 years underground. Anyway, she's seeing these weird orbs of light. And, you know, whenever she goes to investigate them, they just disappear. And they're not the typical orbs. She says they're not like the light emitting orbs that a lot of people see, that these look more like reflections, almost like eye shine, but they only see it in this one part of Centralia and they can go across the street and they never see it. And when they do see it, they get out of the car, they go look for it and it's gone. They get back to the car. It's there again. Could it be an animal? Possibly, but it doesn't sound like it from what she's talking about. And you'd think they would see it in other places as well, not just in this one, you know, graveyard in Centralia. So a very cool story. And I'm anxious to hear more of their investigations into those weird lights in Centralia. But good stories all around: UFOs, ghosts, unexplained phenomenon. So check out Slice of the Paranormal. Our episode was our Halloween special. So that was very, very cool for me to have them on. And once again, just a good rapport with those guys. They're just so great. And when they came and I got to like meet them again in person, I hadn't met Ryan the first time. So to meet Ryan and their friend Jill, I want to give a shout out to Jill. Jill is their photographer. She was there too. And she was awesome. And we just had such a great time. We were on a little bit of a time crunch. They had to get back to another location in Jersey before dark. So, and it's December, so it's dark at like 4:30. But we had such a great time. We had pizza, we had laughs, just very cool people. I can't wait to hang out with them again. So I thank them for sharing their stories. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap up our end of the year special. Like I said, I changed it up a little bit this year, but try to keep it interesting. So some really cool Bigfoot sightings, some ghost stories, some UFO encounters, weird lights in Centralia, and just really good people. So check out their groups, Induced Fear podcast, Slice of the Paranormal podcast, and Squatch Hunters International. They don't have a podcast yet, but they're on Instagram. They have a website. They do field reports. Very cool stuff. I will link to everybody below. check out my buddy Josh Diaz's page. He's got Diaz Wilderness Adventures, and you might see me on there if you don't get enough of me here. I don't know who that person would be, but if you need more of me, go to Josh's channel and there'll be more of me and Josh. So I will link to all of that below. In the meantime, everybody, question everything. Don't question these stories. These are good people. No, I'm teasing. You got to question them. I questioned them, and but I believe them. And because, like I said, you question these things and you say, all right, this doesn't really sound like a bear. It could have been a bear, but the more you dig into it, the more you're like, these things weren't bears. These things were not normal aircraft. These, you don't get tapped on the shoulder by an unseen nothing. So question everything, everybody. Happy New Year. Stay safe. I look forward to 2026. 2025 was a bit rough in patches, but we all move forward, move on. And I hope to see you all. I love you all. Thank you so much for your support over the years. This is like my, I'm coming to finish my, 4th year doing this. So thank you all for following me. Thank you all for watching. And until next time, everybody, embrace the weird. Happy New Year. Rock and roll. Spooky. A floating branch. Must be a ghost. The ghost of Bigfoot. But that does look freaky. It's just like... Use the force, Luke.
You can see the spider web.
Oh, don't ruin it for the people at home.
You can edit that out.
I'm gonna.